Araki e tāne, e mihi ana kia te whenua, e tangi ana ki te tangata. Ko ngā hao e pupuhi mai nei, rere ki uta, rere ki tai, tihai Māori ora. Here is Hauraki, acknowledging the land, lamenting those who have passed, winds here swell to the land, to the tides, a breath of life. Amen. Welcome everybody. So, do we have any apologies before we start?
Councillor Guri personal.
She is
online.
I know she's not here at the moment, so hopefully she's with us. Rebecca, can you hear us?
Yes, good morning. Sorry I'm not there. I'm just not feeling very well at the moment.
Okay, hope you're feeling better soon. I'm
Thank
sorry, sorry, we've already started you two, so. Welcome, nice to see you. So thank you to our special guests who have come to present to the annual plan hearings. Your time and your input into this is very much appreciated. So thank you for being here. We've got a lot to get through, so we'll go straight on with it. Can I get over and a seconder, please, for the apologies?
We don't have any apologies. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, my mistake. We'll go straight to item 2.1, annual plan hearing. And we've got Kate Lewis online who will present the report. We'll take the report as read, but we'll ask Kate to present the summary and address any questions that might come up from councillors. Morning, Kate.
Morena, tēnā koutou. I'm happy to say we haven't received any further submissions to what's included in the report. There's only one late submission which was received well in time to include it, and they'd been in touch with our area manager in advance. The number of submitters who are speaking today has dropped slightly to what's mentioned in the report, but other than that, I don't think I've got anything further to add. The schedule of speakers you've all received separately to the report, thanks to our governance services team. Yes, I think that is all I need to highlight at the moment.
Thank you, Kate. And I just want to make the council and also our public who are attending this online or in person aware that we had a request to accept late submissions, partly because of the long weekends and the challenges with folks who are perhaps wanting to submit, but submitting from out of town and in non-resident ratepayers. So we allow some flexibility on that, because this is part of the process. Getting feedback from people on the annual plan is an important part of why we're here. So we've allowed some flexibility, and that's worked really well. So thank you, Kate, and your team for making sure that we were able to accept those.
No problem.
Okay, so those of you who are here to submit and ready to submit online have gone through the paperwork, the annual plan, proposed annual plan. We'll go straight to submissions, and the first one is. So could I get a mover and a seconder,
yes,
please?
Yep.
So Martin and Robin. Thank you. Do we need to move the submissions now, or do we do those?
Yes, we've done that as part of this report.
Okay, thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so is there any discussion on the motion, or do we go straight to hearings?
You can put the motion.
Okay, so we've done that. All right, we'll go straight to hearings. So we'll invite Carolyn McKenzie.
Good morning, everybody. I would like to comment on 4 economising measures outlined in the operational works program. While I appreciate the rationale behind these measures to soften the rates increase, I believe that it is essential during the current crisis to keep our town vibrant. It is inappropriate to try to contain the rates increase at all costs. Four measures which I believe will contribute more to stifling the town's vitality than to containing the rates increase concerning community board grants, event support, economic development initiatives, and our Coromandel magazine. Contestable community board grants enable vital organisations to realise small projects which help keep them and their community upbeat and moving forward. Reducing the budget for community board grants risks depriving a sports club of safer equipment, a school of the chance to host an event, or, for example, a museum of bilingual signage. Certainly, these and similar small projects can be deferred by 1 year, but right now, as we negotiate the new reality caused by the cyclone, is the time to keep our town active and engaged. We must avoid the stagnation of our community groups. To this end, the budget for these grants must not be tampered with. Similarly, a cut in the budget to support locally developed events will do more to harm the town's vibrancy than to soften the blow of the rates increase. Event planning engages people with their community, while the event itself also involves the community and attracts visitors from out of town. As well as attending the event, visitors go to eateries, go to do a bit of shopping, stay overnight. Spin-off from a successful event benefits the whole town. Thames is now a hyper-aged town, but this imbalance of retired to young people can be addressed by encouraging young people into local employment and promoting local business opportunities. Cutting the budget for economic development initiatives is detrimental to the entire town. We need young people working and living here to keep the town buzzing with new ideas, skills and projects. For the last 10 years, our Coromandel has kept us all, and in particular our non-resident ratepayers, informed, intrigued and enticed with news and articles about the entire peninsula. What a fabulous publication this is. As well as engaging articles and ads, each issue lists events scheduled for the summer months. There were 7 pages in this year's issue with 33 events. Now, more than ever, we need to keep in touch with our non-resident ratepayers and holiday home owners. They need to know what's going on, to know when to schedule their visits, to have information to share with the people who rent their holiday homes. We need them to be informed so that they can continue to spend their summers with us, attending our events and patronising our businesses. Now listen, our Coromandel and Auckland ratepayers get this. Surely there's some sort of compromise between ditching this and this. It must be. So a rates increase of 13.4% may be calculated as what is needed right now. Some homeowners will be completely unfazed by even a 15 or perhaps even a 20% increase. Others will be devastated. I therefore invite you to look at alternatives to a blanket rates increase.
Thank you, Carolyn. Are there any questions of Carolyn?
Carolyn, just in your submission, you talked about you wondered whether Pollen Street, it would be better if you're doing Pollen Street while we've got the road access down while it's quieter. Is that a view that's shared by businesses in town, you know?
No, you know better than I if they've done their submissions.
Thank you.
And also I believe the Business Association is going to go around and ask people.
I just want your comment about Auckland City Council. You realise they put out a series of brochures like that throughout the year.
This one?
Yes, a number. So the update stuff keeps coming out.
Yeah, that's right. So I think it's important to keep in touch with non-residential ratepayers in some way. And this does give you a little bit of information but it also gives you some sites that you can go to and find out what's going on.
Thank you. Any other questions? Martin?
Good morning, Caroline. So when you talk about the community board grants, and I know that yourself and your organisation are very involved in applying for other grants from other organisations, have you found in the last sort of few rounds of those that there's difficulty getting those? Does it seem to be, they seem to be drying up a little bit, or is it?
We haven't got completely into the swing of it yet, but for example, the 6th round of the Museum Hardship Fund, which was introduced to counter the effects of COVID, there should have been a round which would have opened for us to apply for at about the time of the cyclone, and that was deferred. So the round was cancelled or postponed, and has only just reopened now.
Right.
So, and I get the impression that a lot of effort is going to go into helping museums that are actually physically affected by
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Carolyn Saunders.
Good morning. I stand before you as a ratepayer of Thames for 16 years. Government submissions, all councils in New Zealand have unprecedented financial difficulties. It is not peculiar to the TCDC and the Coromandel. We have been impacted, excuse me, by the cyclones, by COVID, and the world has been as well. The council's main priorities for expenditure has to reflect the nature, the damage that nature has given us, and to reconnect our communities. I have been a nurse for 35 years, Thames and Coromandel. I have seen the investment by the TCDC. I have seen advancements. We have had a 2-year period of lockdown, and everybody has come out of it a different person. I don't care what level of society you live in, connect with, but we are all connected somehow. Primarily, I am here to represent the libraries of the Coromandel because they connect the people. I am going to challenge every sitting member here to visit your library in your area. You may be pleasantly surprised. Excuse all my papers. My computer's broken, not my printer. Okay, so cutbacks, you're rediverting money to infrastructure. The importance of clean water, rubbish, park sporting amenities. The repairing of roading, the seaboard on the eastern side, seawalls, operating the peninsula as a lively, exciting place to live in and to visit, to play in, whatever you wish. I bet you all visit the weather reports every day when it looks like it's going to rain. It's sort of, oh no, what's going to happen this time? Okay, so I think we should praise the people who work the roads. They have worked in the most challenging positions. And as I say, I've been a ratepayer for 60 years and I have seen the challenges. It's cyclic. Every 20 years, Thames has a major event. This year, it has impacted the whole of New Zealand. So people are more aware. It's not just the Coromandel again. So be with me. I had this, which I have gone through, fine tooth comb. Not going to talk about it today. Previous speaker has. The ambience of libraries. The Thames Library, I'm speaking mainly for Thames as a person who lives here. They did a survey once of their people there. You go into the library, you will see all ages, because Thames is predominantly the top end of the age, the mature people. I do not believe in aging. I see the library as an essential part of our community. The librarians are, excuse me, so knowledgeable about books, computers, local events. They are simply a service facility funded by the rates of whatever area, whether it be Thames, Tigera, Wangata, Coromandel is coming on board, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong in regards to the funding. But the way I see it, unfortunately, the libraries have always, they do not meet the demands because of the financial shortfall. And the libraries of today are not just repositories for books. They offer so many different things. I have a quick survey here. They had a door counter. 231 feet went across into the libraries throughout Coromandel.
Caroline, you have just under a minute.
Sorry?
You've got just under a minute left.
I'm under a minute.
So you've got just
Oh, I
under a
have
minute.
under a minute. Okay, I'm nearly there.
Okay, you're doing well.
They are a community hub. They have study desks. They have Sky meetings. They have remote working. They have correspondence school. Justice of the Peace hold voluntary 2-hour meetings every week. They have Carnegie Room. They have technology. They have printing, photocopies, library app, Facebook, news cards, handcrafts, book club, volunteers. The libraries in all areas would not be able to operate without the volunteers. We have had a library in Thames. I'm speaking of Thames here since the year 2000, and this is my piece of paper, see? It's the Carnegie Library. There were 15 in New Zealand. There are 3 remaining. One is Thames, one is only Hunga, which is now a cafe, and one down the West Coast. Okay, my 5 minutes up.
Pretty much. So we'll go to questions because I'm pretty sure there might be some. Councillors? Councillor Knowles.
Carol, thank you. You're obviously got quite a passion for libraries. I just wondered, are you aware of the Coromandel Library starting wanting to become a district library and join the group? You are. I think you mentioned it.
I'm speaking predominantly Thames, but I have visited and I have borrowed because we've had properties at Cook's Beach and Tyrrell. So I have visited Mercury Bay, as it's called now, and Tyrrell libraries per se. The Tyrrell Library started in the hall. We now have a purpose-built building. So, yes, but when you see mothers with young children visiting a library and they're actually tactile, touching a book, not with a screen in front of them. Sorry, you've all got screens.
Not you.
But you could be able to operate today without them.
Yeah, my actual question was regarding libraries. and you mentioned Coromandel, because I'm specifically interested in Coromandel. That coming under the umbrella of the district libraries, do you see that as a good thing, as a positive thing, rather than a standalone, which it currently is at the moment?
I believe it is coming under the umbrella. At the present time, it isn't. That's what I was
It's a
informed.
standalone.
I have done a little research, not a lot, I'm sorry.
So have you visited the Coromandel Library? You didn't mention that amongst the.
I did.
You did. You have mentioned you did mention you've been. What did you think of the building up there? Do you think it's up to standard for a library?
It's not purpose-built.
Not purpose-built. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. I just have a very quick question. In our annual plan, one of the suggestions was to remove fees for late items at the
Correct.
library. Is that something that you support as a way of encouraging people to use the library?
Oh, definitely, because I'm always paying for fines.
I might have done so as well.
And they sort of, you know, I go in there and today, sorry, but you know, you've got about 3 books overdue. Guess where they were? In my husband's shed out the back, so not my fault.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have one, if that's okay. You're obviously very passionate about libraries, and you talked about the contribution of volunteers and other people. Your direct involvement in the libraries, is that from an administrative point of view, or a volunteer, or just a supporter? Can you just paint us a bit of a picture?
Both.
All of the above?
All of the above. I was a bookbinder there for about 10 years. You didn't see me because I was upstairs. As a volunteer on the floor, showing, no, I haven't done that. As holding that fabulous card for 30 years for the Thames Library, which started, as I said, from Carnegie, and used to walk down with 3 kids in tow, and the librarian would reach you like, shh. They couldn't say face him on. Our librarians today are trained people, wonderful people skills. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Okay. Dennis T.
Morena, thanks for the opportunity. And 11% average rate increase is the unfortunate but now justifiable price we must start paying for the climate crisis. Extreme events will become more damaging frequently and massive costs, especially around the coast. But we cannot adapt our way out of this crisis. Alongside adapting, we must reduce emissions. It took court action, but to its credit, the previous council recognised this when it unanimously agreed, except for the extension by the former head, with the actions of the Climate Change Declaration. But more crucially, council agreed to, and I quote, an ambitious climate change and emission reduction work programme. There is no emission reduction programme at all, let alone an ambitious one in the standing plan. And that is not acceptable. Even the Mercury-based motorway has been deferred. I implore you to set ambitious emission reduction targets for council's own emissions to 2030 and agree on specific projects to achieve those targets and make those targets KPIs for the chief executive. The good news is that there are many projects that not only reduce emissions, but also save ratepayer costs. Examples include installing solar panels on council buildings and rapidly moving your fleet to electric vehicles. Solar is now the cheapest form of electricity generation. And for $50,000, you get an award-winning EV with 450 kilometres range, more than enough to do the Coromandel loop. And the total cost of ownership is already cheaper than an equivalent petrol or diesel vehicle. The uptake of EVs is exponential, so partnerships with charging providers is essential to attract visitors. The SMP project has identified the Thames waters having present day extreme coastal risk. As I pointed out last month, there are serious knowledge gaps. First, measure subsidence on the entire portal. Second, a comprehensive study of groundwater and contaminated soils. Third, revise the feasibility study for Thames seawall, taking account of the latest government guidance and new sea level rise projections and subsidence. Fourth, fully inform all Thames communities of how subsidence radically brings forward extreme and frequent storm events. And fifth, do a cost benefit analysis of all adaptation options. Now, the SMP project will clearly need additional funds for this vital work. On wastewater and stormwater, sad to say, this council does have a poor environmental compliance record. So the deferral of spending is unwise in my view. I hope you ignore the racially charged rhetoric and focus on the savings to our ratepayers from the proposed water reforms, estimated at $6,290 each year by 2054. And please have the courage and good sense to abandon the proposed total site for a swimming pool. Look elsewhere with less flooding. On the CBD upgrade, deferral is the right choice because, as I pointed out in my presentation last month, parts of Collins Street are at flood risk from a claimed 1 in 20 year storm surge event. It's imprudent to commit spending until SMP adaptation proposals are finalised. And finally, well done on waste minimisation. I favour option 3 because it provides the greatest incentive to reduce waste. It also better assists the 30% plus of our demographic who are aged over 65, who produce less waste but are less able to afford higher charges. Thanks for listening. Happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Dennis. Questions?
Yeah, in regard to waste, have you read Alistair Rickles' submission?
No.
He's talking.
I try not to read else.
In short, he's saying that we need to look at the matter that's sorry? Geometer that's looking at the furnace system, having you shake your head.
So it doesn't stack up. I think there's all sorts of environmental issues that have to come into this solution.
Okay.
Any more questions? Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate your time.
Good morning and thank you for this opportunity to come and speak. A few things, but first of all, the rates increase. There's a large percentage of the Thames people that are on a very small income, being the pension. And when you're trying to live on that and trying to do your moral social duties, like I do, and buying a lot of food from the food bank and helping in other cases and things in our community like the soup on Sunday, which we don't get paid for, and a lot of it's not paid either. A lot of my percentage of my income goes into supporting the people in our community, which is what we're considering. So when I look at the rates for the rubbish, I think to myself, wow, they want to put it like over 148 or say $150. That takes out a month of what I pay out minimum to my social commitment to the community. I don't use emulsions that go out on the street. Some reasons being because of some of the animals that are about, and it's not necessarily dogs. Cats can be a dead nuisance as well. And it's you don't wash all the little bits of paper that come in, so therefore there's plastic that's there. But other than the plastic bits that are rubbish, I don't put anything out. I actually use my boot bags and go to the dump itself on the way going past Seagull, giving them what else can be done.
all my paper is recycled, if I have glass, that's recycled. All the other stuff that I have is recycled. When it comes to food scraps and things, I used to be going to a friend who had pigs, but now that is now used in my compost along with my grass clippings, lime and the food, so the animals don't go into that, and I don't have rats there either. They come from the creek, from the dump. These bins, have you been taken as fools, being told by waste management that a weed bin is what you should be using, we don't want the plastic bags? The people with disabilities in our town find it difficult trying to take a weed bin out to the curb. And then they've got to try and find a way of getting it back in again. Be they in a wheelchair, you try it one day. You try going out there with crutches. Unfortunately, maybe it was someone giving me a lesson in what it's like trying to cope with crutches. And weed bins? No. Then how do you get in when you've got out there, but you've then got to get back in? These things haven't been considered. The storage, people that are in, be they in flats or be they in small properties, where do they put 4 bins? The biggest thing that gets me, and I found it down south of waste management are, and they have these bins, in the summertime when it's hot. What about the maggots, the smell, and the unhygienic aspect? And people that don't put theirs out, they keep putting stuff in it, it then becomes an actual hazard with the hot. Waste management are not interested in picking up a bag and putting that in them. They want something that's nice and easy for them and quick. Labour saving and all that aspect of it. Who washes out those bins? Who cleans them? If the home owner doesn't do it, then it just adds on, and you do end up with a community and a serious health issue. We've got people around this town that leave their black bags up to love, but at least they're sealed. And then do get taken rid of. The library question about fines, I believe in use pays. If you take a book out, and no disrespect to the lady that spoke before, but if you take a book out and you forget to return it, I've been guilty of it, you pay a fine. It makes you realise that you have a consequence of being responsible for what you have borrowed for somebody else, especially if it's a new book. What is that? They're waiting to have that book, and you're holding it back because you forgot to take it back. A fine is another way of actually getting in some revenue, as well as teaching people consequences of what they do. Back to the wheelie bins. The cost of the wheelie bins to the ratepayers. Because if the council paid for them, we pay for them. I have been sitting tight. My green wheelie bin for the last 23 years has been a very good thing to keep my garden implements in. I don't use it. It's there to store my stuff. That $2 million for just the third one would be very well used in repairing the footpaths. I know an elderly lady in the early 90s that when it was going up Martha Street, and it was about 8 years ago, maybe 9 years ago, the one side was so bad she crossed to the other side, and the other side was so bad she fell. Was taken to Thames-Coromandel at 1:30 in the afternoon, was discharged at 1:30 in the morning to find her own way home, and that footpath has never, from then to this day, been repaired. Social, this town, and the money goes in, and I do not envy the task of the people that decide what needs to be spent on. But I think it's really important. And as for that beautiful glossy magazine, it looks good, but most people are on the internet. They can read it on that. Bring back the calendar. As a community control person, I was very dependent on our calendar that told us the tide times and the heights. And not having had it, I haven't been able to find a replacement calendar for it. And it's really important, especially when it's spring tides and when I'm on duty at night. Spring tides, it's bad weather. We do extra work. I make sure we do extra. And now personally, I do it, but I'm not on duty, to see what it's like up the Carolina, out at Cove Hill, to see the level of the water before an event rather than have an event happen and then everybody becomes heroes rescuing people. That calendar could have on it the events coming up, as well as your high tides, your levels and your times, etc. That was a brilliant piece of advertising that was on people's walls and their batches, or their homes or what have you. And that to me was one of the best PR jobs that the council did. And as I say, if you've included on it the events coming up, and even our heritage or whatever's happening in our town on a regular basis, that is so easy to have. The month's sitting there, turn it over, you got the next one. And it would have been a lot cheaper to make. And you can have the advertising around it.
Ruth, we just tipped over the 5 minutes.
Anyway.
It's easy to have them.
Just one last thing.
Yeah.
When
And
it
then
comes-
we'll open it up for questions.
The deferring of painting maintenance is a ostrich attitude. If you defer painting and that building is deteriorating, if you don't give in and seal it, when it comes to being done 2 or 3 years down the line, you are replacing. So therefore the cost is actually going to be a lot greater. It becomes a structural, not just a rental. Thank you.
We'll open that up for questions.
Can you remember how long ago the calendar was produced?
It was about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just ask, when you say deferral of painting maintenance, which building are you referring to?
Oh, when I just read in here, it said about a heritage building was actually going to be deferred, and I think it was in Coromandel. Yep.
So we had, I think, 3 buildings. One we decided to go ahead with, which was the Tarua building, the art gallery. So that's going ahead. There are 2 others that are deferred, I think, only for 12 months.
It's being done now.
Yes.
All right, thanks for your discussions. Food waste, how do you deal with food waste?
As I explained, if some food waste that I have, I use in the compost, and by putting grass, lime, and then food waste, and then, so when you're mowing the lawns, you go out and I save it, let it rot, and you put it into there, and also too, when you do let it rot, you can take the liquid off, and that makes a really good fertiliser in itself.
Yes.
Ruth is a name I know, and you do credit to the name Ruth with your compassion and good sense.
Ruth, can I just say, first of all, thank you for your contribution to community control. Absolutely, it's something I support enormously, so thank you for that. And I have also made a note, and I think it is one that we are going to need to address, is your comments about steep driveways and the challenges that people with disabilities have with bins. It's been brought up by a couple of other people, and I think it's something we just need to discuss a little bit more. So thank you for that.
That is not just steep driveways, it's even on the flat. People are struggling, but the storage is the biggest one.
So thank you for bringing those up. Appreciate your time. Tony Jacobs.
Number of beds.
Before you start, Tony, could I just ask the folks that are online to mute their microphones? We've got one that's open and it's going through the loudspeakers here. Sorry, Tony, go ahead.
No problem. My name's Tony Jacobs and I'm here on behalf of my wife and I to talk about our submission on the annual plan. We live in Tyrone. We appreciate all the effort our council and contractors have put into repairing our storm damaged Coromandel. So thank you all for that massive effort. We fully understand that tough decisions have to be made on how our rates are now going to be spent in the best possible way. We do urge our council to try and find every way they can to reduce the 12.9% increase in rates that people in Tyrone will incur. Everybody's aware that, and certainly in Tyrone, a lot of people suffer by the effects of inflation, storm damage and road closures. And a big increase in the rates is going to have a serious impact on some people and they'll be forced to leave. So it's a tough decisions have to be made. Having said that, we're still concerned that there are some things we cannot afford not to do. Stormwater, much of the damage to our infrastructure and properties been largely caused by inadequate and poorly maintained stormwater services and systems. There's little point in building resilient roads if we don't put the proper stormwater systems in place to protect them. We also have to ensure that our pipework and drainage systems are properly inspected and maintained to prevent loss of expensive drinking water. Every summer, stormwater from Pacu Drive in Tyrone becomes seriously polluted by leaking wastewater. This drains into the marina in Tyrone, and then it passes along Esplanade Beach, which puts the health of bathers and shellfish gatherers along, which is a popular beach for elderly who can't hack these surf beach. This last summer, this has been going on for quite a few summers now. Last summer, they were exposed to pretty high into a couple. And we'd really like to see some effort put into solving this ongoing problem. So thank you. Footpaths and street lights. Many of our footpaths and access steps have been poorly maintained over recent years. Uneven surfaces have caused dangerous trip points, particularly for the elderly. Overgrown vegetation has caused pedestrians to have to step on the road. This is particularly dangerous on Pacu Drive, going up Pacu Hill, a narrow concrete path used by a lot of people, and it's very wide, even blind birds. People are forced to step in the road. It's highly dangerous. We support the Walk Tyrone Society's submission that they put in, referring to the density of footpaths. Parks and reserves. We're disappointed how neglected these have become, with some reserves being inaccessible. With some reserves being a big attraction in Tyrone to tourists is the walk up to the summit of Pacu Hill. It's upsetting to see how neglected this area has become. The wild asparagus has taken over a lot of the hill with scraggly native plants. Never used to be like that. Something has stopped happening. And the trouble with all this is, if you let it go too far, the expense to get it right in the end is going to be massive if you don't keep up good ongoing maintenance. I'd like to talk about the footpath that we need between Graham Street footbridge into town. We support the comments of Walk Tyrone Society again on the need for this footpath to avoid the very real risk of injury to pedestrians having to walk along the edge of Highway 25 with trucks travelling past them at 70k an hour, and now with it, they can only get at the most 1.5 meters away from them. It's highly dangerous. The big tragedy is Walk Tyrone, Ratepayers Association of Tyrone, pushed to get a footbridge put in. Much to our surprise, it happened after about 8 years of pushing. But the tragedy is, by putting that bridge there, it's encouraged lots more people to do the loop walk up the side of the highway to use it. And it's made it into a highly dangerous situation. We know that in the past we've been trying with our council to push an NZTA to fix this. We know that our Prime Minister now has instructed NZTA to focus their attention on reducing speed limits on highways into small communities that have highways going straight through them with maraes and schools alongside the highway. Tairua fits all this criteria. And we also know that councils have been asked to give, district councils to give their input on where they think highways should have speed limits. I really urge our council to please, in your report, ask that the speed limit along State Highway 2 through Tairua is extended down to south of the cemetery, towards Redwood Road, up as far as just north of the Ocean Beach, just north of the Ocean Beach turnoff. This will make a much safer situation. It won't cost NZTA any money to put in a sign simply saying temporary speed limit 50k. They do it on most parts of the highway already. I just would like to say sorry. I do
just about out of time, Tony, but
sorry. I put in those Carolyn's comments on the input to library. The library in Tairua is brilliant, not just for getting books in, encourage our young kids to get involved in all sorts of things. So, look, thank you guys, and thanks for listening to me.
Yes, and maybe we hadn't quite got onto it, but it was a point that I think is very valid. You say with the loss of State Highway 25A, the cost increases with transport and getting through Tairua and Pauanui. I'm told that it's an extra hour one way to travel if you're coming from some distance to get to your place. That's how much it adds. It's 1 hour just extra to get.
It's longer than to get to Canoe from Tairua there takes me exactly 2 hours. It's 120 kilometres. It used to take me 45 minutes. It's an hour and a quarter. And that's if you've got the roadworks, the traffic controls.
But my point is that the pickup of rubbish that you refer to has changed dramatically.
Oh, very much so.
And it hasn't really changed things too much.
Well, I don't know. I could talk forever about the proposals on waste, but on waste rubbish, but I get the feeling that it's a done deal anyway. But I do support at least option 3, which let's make users pay as much as possible and encourage people to waste as little as possible. All I can say.
Other questions for Tony? Thank you, Tony. I take your point about the bridge to nowhere. It's quite bizarre, and we are very much aware of it. That is a Whakatahi issue that probably is not going to be fixed anytime soon, given the pressures on them at the moment.
We don't see that.
Road rehabilitations. So, but yes, it's much done.
It's speed limit. Cost nothing, but it's something.
Yes, thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Tony.
Through the chair, just a point of clarification. It's okay, Tony, thank you. Questions, not discussion after the submissions. And also, I think it would be really helpful if someone took on the role of the 1 minute to go warning.
We've got a system that we can use.
We'll just put 5 minutes on.
Yeah, it's got the night passing.
Okay, so
Just so people don't feel panicked when they suddenly run out of time.
what I'm thinking is a way to let our presenters know without me interrupting their flow that they've got 1 minute
Maybe
left. So,
raise a piece of paper or something, 1 minute
You
or.
could raise your hand when there's 1 minute to go, just saying 1 minute to go.
People obviously
so for those presenting, Ari's written out a fancy note for when you have 1 minute left. I will raise it. We're really high tech here.
Cool.
But,
Just so people don't panic. Cool.
Yeah, good point.
Thank you, Councillor Knoll. Next submission is Thames Community Board and Chair Adrian Atherton. Welcome.
Aramare, to the elected members, to the work of the Mayor and Victor, on the staff. So I take our submissions on page 59, in case anybody's looking, I take the submission being read. And I just intend to just add some comments to our submission. The first point was that we spoke about any comments on the proposed rate increase. We find it difficult at our board level to understand why our rate increase as per the long-term plan has gone from 6.7 for 2022-23 to 13.7, with the second highest rate increase in the district. The highest one being Murphy Bay Ward, so I suppose I'll have some comment to make about that. So we have more people over the age of 65 than any other town in New Zealand, and the peninsula has more people over the age of 65 than any other district area of New Zealand as well. So an increase of 13.7% as currently shown is going to make an impact upon our residents and citizens in this area. With regards to the updated operational works program, and that we talked about, or included in that, I see, we have there was a comment made about whether we were going to retain our funding at $75,000 for grants. We were one of the two committee boards decided to do that. We felt that people would have enough problems and troubles at the moment that we could do something a little bit by giving them back some of the money in terms of grants and along those lines. And it only worked out to be less than 0.3% of an increase on our rates. So we felt that was pretty cheap because of some happiness going forward, provided, of course, that they did get the grant. If they don't get the grant, they'll be just as bad sales as they were before. So with the deferral of the $16 million update and upgrade into Pollen Street, the Thames Committee Board definitely supports retaining $250,000 in the 23-24 program for planning and design to complete in 23-24. And that's our shovel ready. So when it comes to the fact that we can do the upgrade, we want to be ready for it and have the planning and that done for it in advance. So we request that you retain $250,000 in the 23-24 planning and design for Pollen Street upgrade. It's also critical for us, that some of the councillors may not agree with me, but it's also critical for us that we look up the Tokyo Valley Road and keep that on the agenda. That is a very important part of our program going forward here. With 70 sections of Tokyo Valley Road just waiting to be utilised. Their planning's in place, the drawings are in place for that. We just need to upgrade to the stormwater and wastewater and the widening of Tokyo Valley Road for that. And also our spatial plan is extremely important for this area here, as you'll appreciate. So that's critical for us, that Tokyo Valley Road, to retain that, please. And with regards to the, we support option 2, with regards to the waste. Now, in the 33 years that I've been involved in our business, we've never used a council rubbish bin once. So, and one of the former CEOs used to say, well, we drive past your place every day, that's your problem, we don't want to use it. But we've never used it. But what my understanding was that part of our rate increase was based on the fact that with the new contract coming in place in September, there's a 78% increase in cost to this council for waste. Now, I understand that we used to do it like a trifecta between Matamata Piakau, Harrington District Council, and Thames-Coromandel District Council. I'm not here to discuss the politics of it, but this time we're on a standalone basis. So of that 78% rate increase in cost for that new contract coming in, we actually drop a couple of services out of it in terms of a weekly collection, drop back to a fortnightly collection on some items. But that gives us a 5.8% increase in our rate cost. 5.8% increase in our rate cost. That is phenomenal. And I spoke to one of the council managers, and he said, well, we've got that down to 4.9. We're going to work off what currently we were told it's 5.8% rate increase. And for those of us who don't use it, that's our problem. but when we'll continue using an outside contractor to take our things away. But in terms of food waste, I think that's an important aspect. But many years ago, we tried bringing to here on the community board composting arrangements. You want to fix it? No. Composting arrangements and giving everybody a compost bin, but that fell by the wayside. The last, I only have one more, the last one, talking about the fees and charges as presented. Now, here I do have a gripe. The fact that the community boards, I'm not too sure about my counterpart sitting over there, but community boards had no financial information given to us at all. In fact, when you go to click here for your rates and charges, I noticed that they've already made changes to the, for example, I only got as far as the civic centre. I got so angry I switched off the computer, but there they increased the charges per chair, for example. But we had nothing about the library, nothing about the swimming pool, nothing about the civic centre or anything like that. We had no information and put it to the community board. In days gone by, we'd actually have a staff member come and sit with us and give us a rate increase. So if we increase the rate by 30%, that tells us what the median would be in town per rateable assessment. We got no information, nothing like that. In fact, I've given out one we used to have, the last one I've got is 2015, and it just puts us working like a bit like a mushroom, really. So
thank you, Adrian.
My life.
Thank you. Any questions?
I can't miss an opportunity to have somebody with Adrian's experience standing up there and not asking some questions. Adrian, you were talking about the big cost in the new waste contract and just the cost of it. Are you aware that in actual fact that contract just about puts like a hand in the glove with the strategy that the government announced was going to be mandatory in 2030? In other words, it was built for that strategy, which we have no choice but to follow. Were you aware of that?
Are you talking about the increase in levies and charges that comes through from the government?
I'm talking about what the government wants.
Are you
Every
talking about
council
increase in
has-
levies and charges?
Okay.
I'll ask you a question. Okay, 215% increase in levies and charges for waste management. The thing about that is 215% increase on what? We don't even know what the baseline was. So how do we know what 215? Is it on $40 what it used to be per tonne? Or is it on $20 per tonne? Or is it on $100 per tonne? We don't know. So it's very difficult to work out where the 78% comes from if you don't know what the baseline is.
But you are aware of that strategy.
Oh,
that the government-
absolutely.
Okay, that's-
I've sat through things when local government talked about having charges on packaging.
Yep.
Can I just say that based on Adrian's answer, I don't think he is aware of that.
I'm just wondering.
The new policy that's been announced, and I think it would probably be really useful if we get a summary of that recently announced government policy on waste and we distribute that to the community board members, because I'm not convinced that they are right up to date with that based on your answer. So what John was asking is, are you aware of the new government policy on waste? And it's not just about increases in levies and charges, it's much, much broader than that, and it fits with the waste.
With all
due respect, we only had that figure, 250% increase. We had no drill down about what it was. Going back to the original comment I made, we're not getting information board level.
So this was, just to put a timeline on that, this new policy was announced after all this work was done and distributed. So this is very new. We will distribute that.
I think it's a good thing.
I think it's good to bring community board members and chairs in particular up to date with this new policy and how it aligns with the.
But it affects our community.
It does. It affects all.
And another question while I've got there, Adrian. Okay, so you're a man with a lot of experience on a few councils, and you talk about the rates increase being 13%. When we're dealing with inflation at around 7% and CPIs, and you know that the CPI doesn't actually, the council uses a different set of factors other than the CPI that's publicly announced. It's actually higher. How would you deal? What would you do, Adrian, to actually lower that rates?
Okay, the actual currently rate of inflation 6.8 last week. It's a awkward question. I mean, we freely admit that there's a problem facing us. I mean, we've been told that we've got $2.2 million emergency fund. The actual costing for roads and that's roads north of Coromandel, East Coast, council roads is around about $40 million. That is amazing, those costs. But I'm talking about the 10th ward. The 10th ward doesn't have those problems with roading and things like that there. So reducing,
Roading is district funded.
reducing rates is a difficult thing. I always say to the board members, you can have whatever you like, provided you're prepared to pay for them. So I'm well aware about rates, well aware, but 13.7 increase over 6.9 is a little high for me.
Okay. And just so that, just to refresh your memory, when it comes to roading, it is district funded. So, yep, it is going to impact the Thames, and it's 50 million, I believe, the cost of the damage to the roads.
So it's got
Just for your information.
Just for your information since the last time.
Okay.
Just in regard to the Totra Valley project,
yes,
isn't the key you need a developer?
Oh, we've got development for the city. You're talking about the 70 sections?
Yeah,
we've got
there is a developer there.
Absolutely. They bought the land. They've given the council 1.2 hectares of land for stormwater ponding area. And they're just playing, and part of that, here I'm telling you, part of that condition of giving them that land was they have access of Totra Valley Road to their property. That's part of the agreement now. And someone definitely is looking at me as spot wrong. I was talking to the developer, and that's what he told me.
Well, I'm pleased to hear it.
Yes. So 70 sections, average size around about 350, 400 square metres. So they are quite small, but there will be 70 more houses built in that area.
Okay, any other questions?
I'd love it to be, but no.
Thank you, Adrian.
You're looking at it, I'm going to text me. Okay, thank you very much for hearing me out.
Thank you.
Coromandel Solvable Community Board, Gavin.
Yes.
Morning, Gavin. Morning, good.
Yeah, thanks for putting the changes in your plan out for consultation and seeing submissions and giving us a chance to talk to you today. Yes, tight financial times, difficult decisions need to be made because we've got 394 pages there telling you that should always be the case. That should always be careful with the decisions that you're making. Some of them in our submission, particularly around deferring maintenance, you heard from Ruth and Dennis, that deferring maintenance is a losing game. We appreciate that our heritage buildings have been put off for 1 year, and that may be necessary, but we really ask that they go onto a list that they are kept front of mind and that the maintenance does get done because they are deteriorating. Those heritage things are important to us in Coromandel town, and once they're gone, they're gone. As time goes by, the cost of maintenance increases, and the sooner they can be done, the better. The other point we wanted to make was around the grants that are given from the community board and the reduction of those. Like Adrian, it would be great if they weren't to be reduced, then we should have the full allocation. The proposal was that both grants, the contestable grant and the discretionary fund, the discretionary budget would be reduced by half. Our submission is that creates a lot of work. So the contestable fund is a lot of work for people to apply for. It creates a whole bunch of admin for what is quite a small prize. If you like, the juice doesn't become worth the squeeze. So our proposal would be for the same impact to the budget, to move that money from the contestable fund into the discretionary fund. The community board then can create a system to allocate that money, which is less burdensome for people, and will still deliver that money to the community for the projects that are for the benefit of the community and that people are wanting to do. The last part really was around the district library. You'll note in our submission a comment around the district library. We're not asking for money or for funding for it. We're simply asking for a positive response from the council, an indication of support for the Coromandel Library falling into line with the other libraries in the district and becoming a district library. And also the use of that site in the main street of Coromandel there where the building is already, as John tried to tease out, it's not the purpose, it's not suitable for the use it's been used for, and it's also not safe, not providing for the people who are giving their time to work there. It's a good environment for them. And yes, a long-term project and something that the community is willing to take on, and we'll work forward and work with the council on that. Just at this point, just looking for an indication of support from the council for us to proceed with that. That's it from us.
John.
First of all, I must congratulate your community board on an excellent solution and well presented. Let's just tease out that library thing a little bit more, Gavin. Specifically, I mean, it's obvious that the library, in my opinion, should be a district one to just conform and be consistent throughout the district. But to go back to the use of that site, be absolutely clear, we're not asking council for money at this stage, just an indication of support. Do you envisage that the community up there will be looking for outside sourced funding to progress this?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that's where the support from the council comes into it, so that we can go to other funders, other sources, and they know that we've got the backing of the council.
Absolutely, Marcus. Thank you.
Those are jack-up ones. So thank you, Dylan.
This is not a jack-up, but potentially an awkward question because you may not have canvassed your board about it. Across all of the community board submissions, there were a range of views about the contestable funding. Would you be supportive of each board being treated differently when it came to that? So you have showed a preference for not having the boards. Thames Community Board have just told us they have a preference for keeping that. Do you want all the boards to be treated equally on that, or are you happy for us to sort of have a different arrangement based on?
I think courses, I think it would be beneficial. Different boards will have different strengths, they'll have different links into their communities, different ways of managing it.
Yeah.
And I think, if the money was there,
yeah,
the community board.
I do have to put the disclaimer that I haven't asked the staff if that's possible, so yeah, I'm sorry. I may have set myself up for failure, but thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Kevin, just one from me. Just the moving the library to a district library, what effect would that have in terms of your ability to progress in plans for the library?
John may be better positioned to answer that.
It certainly wouldn't be a hindrance, I believe. In fact, it would be beneficial. And it would allow us to deliver that, as we always try to do, that same level of service right throughout the district on everything we do.
Thank you. Kevin, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Good. So Jan, right, are you supported by Fiona on this one? Hello, welcome. So Jan Wright and Fiona Cameron for Creative Coromandel.
Morena, Mayor Leland, council staff and members of the public, thank you for collaboration this week. I'm Fiona Cameron, I'm Chair of Creative Coromandel. Jan Wright, who's our wonderful district arts manager. Jan's going to talk to our submission, having questions. Jan's going to do something like speed dating. Thank you very much indeed for this opportunity to speak. Creative Coromandel initially is an independent charitable trust formed in 2016 to implement the TCDC adopted district arts strategy and to assess applications to the TCDC administered creative communities and to disperse those funds. We hold a 3-year community service agreement with TCDC, receiving a grant of $15,000 annually, which contributes to operation costs of around $100,000, which buys a staffing level, which enables us to actually get some arts money done across the district. We are currently reliant on grants from public funders for the $85,000 pay balance. And we have just worked with Funding HQ on the development of a philanthropy plan, which is yet to be implemented. Funding HQ, for those who are unfamiliar with it, is a leading fundraising capability building platform developed in New Zealand, not-for-profits. Speaking now to the inevitable rates increase and proposed operational works program, we acknowledge the country is facing many major challenges right now, some of them completely unprecedented, but we don't have. Public funders, though, are also under pressure, with more and more community organisations in need. As a result, grants from public funders are drying up. Here are some comments from Julie Devlin, who's the director of Funding HQ. She says that gaming trusts at the poker machine reviews are distributing far less than they had previously because more groups are applying for funding and the pool of funds they can distribute has become smaller. She adds that other public funders like community trusts are reassessing the amount that they can give to community organisations, resulting in some groups who are applying not receiving as much as they have previously and in some cases being declined, which is the case that Thames-Coromandel has experienced very recently, the key application for our 2023-24 mahi being declined. We therefore suggest that this is the wrong time for TCDC to consider reducing or withdrawing funds, which enables the many groups, the community groups, to go about their important business of weaving together the people of our Mohi, creating social cohesion, a sense of identity and self-expression. Many small community organisations will just not have anywhere else to go to for grants and will be forced to hibernate or maybe even fold. At a time when the mental health of our communities is at a low, we need our community organisations strong, enabled and functioning well. We believe that now is the time for TCDC to actually invest in the mahi undertaken by community organisations, not the opposite. The cost of the support to the ratepayer would be minuscule in relation to the community good that results from the work of the community groups. We acknowledge, though, that what money there is must be spent really wisely. This calls for all of we community groups to examine the way we work, the way that we do things, and look broadly at what could work better. We need to encourage groups to embrace collaboration, to look at ways to share skills and resources for the advancement of all, to be innovative about inter and intra-sector collaboration, and to shift thinking beyond our own operation to who else can we bring with us. We suggest that TCDC encourages collaboration by actively supporting organisations that demonstrate cooperation, flexibility and breadth of thinking. Thames-Coromandel salutes TCDC's recent decision to buy a licence for Funding HQ's mentoring and funding portal for the multiple arts, heritage and cultural groups in the district. Our staff will gladly help to maximise the benefit by facilitating the relationship between those organisations and Funding HQ. Further, our trust salutes the decision to progress the removal of the Thames pool from the Urupara. In the same spirit, we ask that TCDC, as community leaders, actively model what it means to be good treaty partners and to lead initiatives which support other community groups and a greater understanding of Te Ao Māori. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Any questions?
Questions? Martin?
Fiona. So you were talking about the other public funders and community trusts and gaming trusts having a squeeze on their money. Do you feel or do you know whether those funders are going to be more maybe giving their money to a national type body to do something rather than at the local level, or have you not quite drilled down that?
No, our understanding, Martin, is that there is such a huge call for for from social costs.
Yeah.
That they are really having to be very, very careful. The funding, basically, the survival level.
Okay.
So social services is where they're putting their money.
Thank you. Yes, thank you for your contribution. So with the focus in the future on wellbeing, how do you feel arts is going to connect with that? Is it shared as important?
Very good question. Well,
Kia ora, Sherry. Speaking from the cold face, I think in the Thames-Coromandel, we represent the whole of the Coromandel Peninsula. And many of our businesses are to do with tourism, arts and retail. And our communities are involved in this in every aspect of our lives, arts, creativity and culture. For us to promote ourselves and be the Coromandel that we can be, we need to tap into that creativity and what we are as communities. So if we limit the money or the support we can give to those communities, it's going to have all sorts of impacts on mental health, on their financial well-being, and yeah, it's not looking positive for the Coromandel moving forward.
And I think if we look at the role that the arts played during the impacts of COVID-19, it's very, very clear that the arts are massive players in well-being.
Great connection. Thank you.
Can I just actually say one other thing? Sorry. As a chair, I get people approach me all the time asking about venues or how to get funding or to get help and advocacy. And there's a huge need out in the community for this support, whether it's arts, cultural heritage, and I hope this council will keep flying those flags and being supportive that they can be for other people.
I have one question. Is there a direct economic impact on reducing funding to the arts when times get tough?
Yes.
I believe so. Yeah.
You've seen
I believe so.
you've seen evidence of that through the last period, particularly during COVID and
During COVID, yes, definitely. The arts play a huge role in the vibrancy of any community. And vibrancy creates economic well-being as well as spiritual well-being.
thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
I'm going to pause momentarily and ask Deputy Chair to step in just for a moment. I need to discuss a couple of things. So.
Through the chair, we do have Lisa has sent in a video presentation, but Jan will also speak on behalf of Coromandel Heritage Trust.
Yeah. And I believe we've got Tom Barter, our chair, as well. Yes.
Okay, so we will be playing this video presentation.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, those that are online will not be able to hear it. So Councillor Giddy Percival, I've sent her a copy of it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sorry. You really get out of there. There you go.
And we've got Tom somewhere.
Hi.
This is Tom Barker, our chair.
Right.
Right, so further to our colleague Lisa's comments, like Thames-Coromandel, the Treasury sees it as the responsibility of TCDC as leaders of our community to live into a future where we were actually brave enough to do things differently. We encourage TCDC not to forfeit funding for community-based organisations, but instead to actively buy into enabling their money. We encourage TCDC to live into the future of the future for local government draft report now, and where possible, to front foot the shift to new ways of working in a system that is, quote, community focused and citizen centred, based on strong relationships and partnerships, unquote. Truly inspiring sentiments. And we understand that local government does not yet have the dedicated funding or time available to enable this sort of leadership. However, in the meantime, we ask TCDC to encourage collaboration and broad forward thinking in our diverse community organisations, and to work alongside us, contributing to the development of a cohesive relationship between community and local government. One aspect of the Treasury's current mahi is serving local schools as they develop their Aotearoa New Zealand local history curriculum. Another is working alongside Thames-Coromandel, funny that, as we blur boundaries between art and heritage. Yet another is exploring how Thames can hero its extraordinary built heritage. We're also exploring what a district-wide heritage network might look like. Together with like-minded organisations, we have much to do and the right people in place to do this mahi at the Treasury. However, the Treasury has also been a casualty of public funding cutbacks and has had a really key application to lottery community decline. It's starting. Right at the moment, is going to lose several of those right people. Our submission today to TCDC was, I think, supported, I think he's needed to go, by Elton Fraser, who was a property lead and manager of the Thames School of Businesses, the Thames School of Mines. Thank you, Elton, for being here with us today. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Jan. Is Tom want to say any words or?
No, just here more to answer questions that anyone may have. But thank you, Jan.
Questions? No questions at the moment, so thank you, Jan. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for your words and insight. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks.
Donald, please.
I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, John. Thanks for that. Thank you for hearing me today. Most of you know me, I think, in the room. A few that don't. The history, I worked here as a staff planner in the 1990s. I did the code management thing here in 2019, pre-COVID, for a while. And then otherwise I worked as a planning surveying consultant with Thames since 1988. Basically, so from there, I've got some details to distribute. And I've also got extra copies of my large size copies of the drawing tips. So I submitted on a number of things. I do the very quick ones first. Waste management. The bins, I did say there's general support for the bins. I think there's a logistics issue with these bins. I know that it takes my wife and myself 4 to 6 weeks to fill a blue plastic bag. So that means it will take 3 months to fill one of these big bins with spinking and rotting and rubbish in those big bins. What do we do with the fish, chicken and meat waste? We don't put it in my compost. I don't get a compost bin, everybody else goes in the compost. So I want to move this and I hope this is trying to solve the problem that doesn't exist, in fact. So I also endorse what some said about the fact that the big bins are going to be real difficult for some to live around. I agree with that. So anyway, move on from that. I've got some other matters. Another quick one. As a planner, when I was working in the 1990s, we had scale and fees and charges. We were supposed to work within those scale and fees and charges planners. It doesn't happen now. And it's become the planning, particularly the planning fees, have become a cash cow to outside consultants. Brian will probably know about this, how huge the fees get. As a consultant, I know how much I charge my client for doing resource consent. I know how much council charges for processing it, and they're doing the same stuff. That's got to be looked at. I don't have a problem with the fees and charges that are written in the proposed fees and charges for resource consent. I have the problem that generally the actual charge is way above that, sometimes several times. So that's something that I think the planning department needs to look hard at that. So anyway, let's move on to the Worcester standards stuff. I've just distributed a document that shows the regional heights plants they hit. During the 2002 weather bomb, there was a major water wastage on the driveway on the, you can see in the first photograph where it says existing subs. As a result of that work, the right-hand side was enlarged and left-hand one was built. But there is a low spot on the street further around, and we're water improvements, and that goes down the 2 neighbouring driveways, one which is ours. Change the page, you see the all the sandbag we put up for Gabriel altitudes. Before that, it was a big thunderstorm when it was running down our driveways, because there is a low spot there. New stump needs to go just where the Toyota Corolla is parked to the north at the far end of those sandbags. But that's a necessary work, I believe, because we are taking road stormwater, huge volumes of down those 2 driveways. During the weather bomb, there was a major slip problem of those driveways. So that's that. Right, the one that really is my really important thing is councils, is policy. Before the last election, I conversed all most candidates, but every team is more anyway, on re-looking at how Holland Street works to make it work better for pedestrians, who people become. Yeah, the drawing you will have seen, the drawing that I presented, the This is a second version, and I have to say that I support, undoubtedly support the vibe. But the main reason I support that is because it has improved traffic safety at Thames' most difficult intersection for pedestrians immeasurably. I noticed a lot of complaints saying, well, the red markings been. Before, when there were no markings of any kind, it was a rough and roulette for pedestrians crossing the intersection. Now it's not. It's vastly improved because we're not dealing with traffic coming in all directions, most of which will ignore stop signs. And I'm being ignored. Very rare for someone to stop at those stop signs at the Bond Street goes to the intersection. So I proposed when we rip the street up to put in a new stormwater and the rest of it has been talked about, which I see is deferred anyway. When we do that, when we have to reseal that street, we have an ample opportunity to completely reconsider how this town works. For it to work satisfactorily, we will need new roundabouts on Old Town Highway. I know NTTA will probably work with that, but NTTA is there to serve the community. We're not there to serve NTTA, and NTTA need to be mindful of that. They are still carrying the same baggage they carry through the National Roads Board. They still behave the same way. That needs to change. You've got councils push upwards. So that is really, if you get a chance to read through my stuff, which I see is on page 215, on 322, on paper. Questions, please.
Thank you, Don. Any questions? Yes, Peter. Have you submitted a request for service?
No, not at this stage. No, it's going through the submission process. That's the reason why we're talking about. I recommend it. It's interesting that in the photograph, you can see a brand new piece of concrete there. That was probably 2 weeks ago, just because some weeks ago. Any other questions? Gary?
I'm sorry, I don't know you. I'm Gary Gottlieb. Yes. And I'm interested to hear your planning background. And when I do stuff for the government, it's a fixed fee. And I just cannot believe, that's why I just at the moment again asked how much we pay consultants, and all sorts of stuff, because I cannot believe the huge amount of money as you talk about.
Just clarification. Let's say, as an example, I have an application fee of $2,000. I can provide lots of documentary evidence to show that the fees, I might have charged $3,500 for the application, but the council's consultants will charge $6,000 to read my application and write the version of it. And that's generally.
Whereas you would do it in-house. When you were there, you were just.
When I was here in-house, we were required to try and work within that fee. If we thought we weren't going to be able to, we had to put out an estimate of how much more it would cost, and then add it to the applicants, and it was rare that we did that.
Thank you, Don. Mark.
Yeah, so just around the new bins, so are you aware that the new proposed wheelie bins are 140 litres, which I think is about 2/3 the height of the current ones, and I think are going to would hold the equivalent of about 2 rubbish bags?
They would, so it takes me, say, 4 to 6 weeks to fill one, so it's up to 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So I'm very concerned about the health hazard of that, to be honest.
And then a follow-up question, but I guess there will be people who, I mean, we're hearing a lot from people that produce little waste, but I guess for people that produce more waste, would you agree that the bins are a better option than the bags?
I think that's an interesting question, because the bins are obviously going to be easier to handle from the infrastructure side. They're going to be less easy. Yes, there is a problem with occasionally cats and dogs ripping into the blue bags. We haven't seen that in the area for quite a while, but that depends on the animals being there to do it. Yes, I don't have a good answer to that one, to be honest. Whether one is critical to the other. But I know that 2 of those bins, the compost bin. How many bins are there? There's a glass bin which we use.
There'll be one more. Sorry, through the chair. There'll be one more than what we currently have.
Right.
2 more.
There'll be 4 in total. Yeah, 2 large ones, a glass one.
Yeah,
bin replacement
right. Chances are the compost one will be used by us similar to the other lady. They'll probably carry a garden tools around.
Okay, any more questions for Donald? I've just got one, Donald. I see your plan you put here
for the Collins Street, etc. I suggest that you submit that through the community board, see if that's got any input or discussion. Be a great position. Thank you.
Yeah, I have discussed it with Adrian as well, so thanks for the, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for your heads out, thumbs up.
Thanks, Tom.
Good, I'll start.
Right.
We do have Kevin Crawford who's online, who needs to attend another meeting, so we are going to hear him now.
We're going to go to Kevin Crawford from Kuatuna, residents and ratepayers, 81 on your submission paper number. Kevin, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Kevin.
Good. Very, very good. Morena, everyone. My name's Kevin Crawford. I'm secretary of the Kuatuna Ratepayers Association. We've got some 209 paid up members. And so thank you for the opportunity of speaking on their behalf. And in this limited time, I'll address some of the key aspects of our 4-page submission. In particular, the annual plan talks of $40 million plus estimated cost for road infrastructure recovery post-cyclone as the reasons for the rate increases and the reasons for the capital works deferral. Yet there's no indication of the expected government contribution and what then would be the shortfall. And there's no listing of region-wide road recovery projects, prioritisation, or even their approximate budgets. Surely by now there is such a list, and the costing and the locations can be made clearer in the final annual plan. For example, one issue that concerns this particular area, Mercury Bay North, is what priority has the repair of the Blackjack Road for the resilience needed for those two communities of Otama and Apito. And I'm sure region-wide, other communities have the same questions. There are no line items for the recent events in the Capital Works program, but there's 3 line items for 2022 storm events repairs. So it's important that the annual plan reflects the events that you are dealing with. In the capital expenditure for Mercury Bay, there is no line items north of Whitianga, which is a real concern. And the already reduced Mercury Bay budget is disproportionately allocated to Whitianga. Like the previous speakers, our community is really concerned about road safety and walking and cycling adjacent to State Highway 25. Even more so as a result of the State Highway 25A closure, resulting in a huge increase in traffic through Kuatuna. This makes it truly urgent for a completion of a separate pathway between the Bluff Road junction and the boat ramp along State Highway 25. Currently, walkers and cyclists have a very narrow road shoulder, often with boat trailers on holiday weekends in a speed of environment of 70 k's an hour. And the safety is of real significance. There was, in the 2018-2028 long-term plan, a budget allowance for $364,000, which was a cost share with Waka Kotahi. But it was removed in an earlier annual plan, and it's never been reinstated. We ask that this annual plan complete that missing piece of pathway, and also deal with the reducing of the speed limit. Another speaker talked about signage, additional signage. This takes the change in the speed environment and the traffic environment as a result of State Highway 25 closure, and as an opportunity of council putting back on the table this issue of safety along this particular stretch of road, and getting back into a conversation with Waka Kotahi about funding for its completion. We and Matarangi Residents and Ratepayers Association are particularly disappointed at the absence of a line item for the proposed suspension bridge at Bluff Cove to reinstate the connectivity between the two communities. Especially, and this was as a result of the rockfall that happened in December 2021. Especially since there was an out-of-cycle budget resolution by the Mercury Bay Community Board in September 2022.
Kevin, you're a minute to go, mate, just to give you some heads up.
There's also potential community funding and a design brief, which we've responded to. And in this document, the project adds community involvement and it's indicated a positive consultation process. The lack of any budget line item is a cause of real concern. We ask that budget item be included, demonstrating TCD's commitment for at least investigation and design, a line item, and indeed a line item for the CapEx. We've made some suggestions in regard to the curbside recycling, and I won't go through at the moment. It's in our submission. And it's the lack of options and the lack of consultation prior to it appearing in the annual plan. So in completion, thanks for your time in dealing with this submission, and for your officers looking at and due consideration. And we would like to see a response in the form of reallocation of budgets in this final annual plan. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Kevin. Yes, a very comprehensive submission. Any questions? Yes, question, Gary.
I note that you've got include as an option for waste to energy facilities for the district. You say that the changes and options are much too narrow. What's your main bullet point on your concern there?
The lack of the opportunity of opting out, the lack of even consideration of waste to energy. Now, my colleague on the Kautunu Ratepayers Association made a private submission of that, Alistair Brickle. He'll be speaking to that shortly. Probably he could best address that and more efficiently in the time, Gary. But the main problem is the lack of innovation and the lack of full consultation of a range of options, and waste to energy and the Te Amutu example is a key indicator for council that there are some very viable options that should be considered, and in our opinion, the $2.04 million for waste bin curbside bins could be deferred.
Thank you.
Defer it for a year as part of the recovery, and use it for better capital projects. Yep.
Any other questions for Kevin? That's all, Kevin. Thank you very much, and we're glad we slotted you in. So thanks for coming.
Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Through the chair, we have Heather Bruce, who will be speaking on behalf of Chrissy Robinson, who is unable to attend.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Kevin. Go ahead.
Kia ora koutou, katoa. As Ari said, I'm standing in for Chrissy Robinson, Chair of the Mercury Bay Community Board, and will be speaking to the board submission. So firstly, the Mercury Bay Community Board just wanted to acknowledge that this is a really challenging time for the district, and they recognise the need for council to carefully consider the financial impact on their ratepayers. They also acknowledged the need to make changes to the operational work program, and specifically commented on three things out of the proposed plan. One was the discretionary and contestable grants. So they do support a reduction in the discretionary grants and the contestable discretionary funding contestable grants across the district. In respect to the Mercury Bay ward, the board made the decision to recommend that their contestable grant fund was removed in its entirety for this financial year. And they supported amending the discretionary fund by half, down from $20,000 to $10,000 for this financial year. They also supported retaining some of the major event fund, just acknowledging that, you know, we have had a difficult time for events over the last little while, and it does bring some vibrancy and budget funding into the communities. So they wanted to retain some support at that level. They also did not support a reduction in the budget for stormwater, wastewater and water supply investigation fees. And they just wanted to reiterate their strong support for completing the Whitianga water supply strategy study that was proposed. In addition to the items that were in the annual plan for discussion, they did make a specific point in respect to investigation fees, and generally, wherever possible, keeping investigation fees in place so that they can support getting projects to that shovel-ready stage in case funding becomes available either externally or internally. The other item they talked about was the capital works program, and specifically the Mercury Way Cycleway development project. They resolved at the 8th of February meeting to continue with that project, and would like to request that the $180,000 that was adopted in the 2023-24 year of the long-term plan be retained to continue that project as anticipated. With respect to the rubbish collection, the only comment from the board was that they supported the recommended option 2 for pay as you throw, and they had no comment on the proposed fees and charges. Did anyone have any questions?
Peter?
Yes. Heather, do you know why the community board supported option 2? What was behind it?
For the pay as you throw, they just discussed all the options and thought they would go for that middle ground.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Heather. That's fantastic. Appreciate that. And we can give our regards to Chrissy, please.
I will. Thank you very much.
Okay. Alistair, and he's here all the way. Welcome, Mr. Brickcover.
Thank you. Can I sit down?
You can.
Because I want to be sitting with you, not to you.
And you were very well.
I think whatever is saying.
You have 1 minute left. Oh, sorry.
Oh, rude.
First of all,
Alistair's used to me.
just sitting over there, I noticed picture of Her Majesty up there. Are we going to get a picture of the new king?
You're now eating into your time.
Well, that's a question. I
would suggest you get on with it.
Just a question. Okay, you've heard Kevin Crawford from Redcoats submit, and you almost right here, I agree with what a lot of what he says. However, this is a private submission. I'm going to concentrate mainly on the rubbish issue because that's one that's dear to my heart. And my main issue with that is the lack of consultation that you're probably aware of. I think it's a failure of consultation by council. I think it's almost an insult to the ratepayers and the community boards. There's been no chance for ratepayers, as far as I'm aware, to engage with council over what is really a very major change. It affects every single ratepayer resident on the peninsula. The process has been neither open nor transparent. I think it's a big failure. And I feel we're going to be given the chance to tinker with what council has already decided. And I think that, to me, is not the way it should work. You have a huge communication department. Where have they been on this issue? I haven't had much communication. I don't know if anybody else has, but I think it's a huge failure of consultation. And the idea now is open transparency and consultation, I would have thought. And to me, this is a big failure. I'm sorry to say it's a big fail. Okay, the new rubbish system, I think other people have mentioned to it. It's solving a problem that doesn't really exist. I mean, you can make it into a problem, but why can't we defer this for 5 years? What is the rush? This gives us time, council time to assess other options, and as you know, I'm very keen on incineration. You've got my submission there about pretty pictures about incineration. There are problems with it. I feel the increased costs, which possibly are inevitable, are not increased supply shipping. We've seen a lot already. It was historically a big problem. It's starting to be a problem again. It's very inconvenient for batch owners. Someone has mentioned about the bins. Well, there's 4 bins now. Lynn, I think you know my property a little bit. For me to go down the road with my bins in the back, it's 900 meters. You know, I've got a glass bin, the old 240 litre bin, the new 140 litre one, the food waste bin. That's a lot of stuff to cart out the road and back again. And the bin, as someone else has mentioned, is huge for the food waste and also the replacement of the blue bags. It's going to take a long time to build those up. So I think it needs more thought, and it needs more input from the ratepayers. I mean, this is what should be going on. The money that can be saved can be put to other capital items, and as Kevin mentioned, one of our issues at Kuatuno is the boat ramp. There was that item in the long-term plan to finish the footpath and cycle path between the Kuatuno boat ramp going west to the intersection with Bluff Road. Years ago, that was a joint cost sharing with Kotahi by council. Kotahi finished their section to the east of the boat ramp that is working wonderfully well. The other side, which was council's responsibility, has not been touched, and it needs attention. Especially now, as I think Kevin mentioned, there's a huge increase in traffic, heavy traffic along that narrow stretch of road. I was down there this last Sunday. I suppose it's a holiday weekend, but there were boat trailers parked all over the road, cars everywhere, people badly parking, people on bicycles, camper vans going by, trailers turning in with boats, cyclists and pedestrians. And the past, we've got pictures of people with prams walking along the state highway trying to avoid those park trailers. It needs attention. This is a safety issue. Rubbish is, okay, it's important, but safety should be the priority. Someone's going to be killed there, and I would rather have someone not killed and not have to worry about the rubbish bins. The rubbish bins can wait. If it's too late, and you may have the government overarching strategy and you have to go ahead with it, there should be an option to opt out. People should be able to opt out. And also, I think it's important we have some reporting of the success or failure of the new system. You've got a picture in my submission here of the specific fire that takes place, you know, every so often. And there's so many other bottles, all that stuff that spontaneously combust. It's very strange. It happens all around the country. It's happened at least twice in Thames, and the plume of smoke from that is terrible. It's toxic and it's uncontrollable, and that sort of thing is going to carry on. I think we need, quarterly reporting back from council on a new system to ratepayers on a regular basis as to how it's working. What is happening to that food waste? How is it working? Because I suspect a lot of it's going to be dumped in the pit, and that's not satisfactory. In the past, I think Auckland Council tried to compost a lot of their waste, and it was a very fantastic idea, but it didn't work. In the end, it had heavy metal contamination was a problem. They couldn't even use it on council trees and shrubs and things. So it's not a perfect system. In theory, it is perfect, but I think it needs a lot of work. Well, 5 minutes more? Okay, one last thing, and we have great ideas about recycling milk bottles. One of the great ideas is, make fence posts. That's fantastic. Let's make some plastic fence posts. And it's great. They're lightweight and they're strong. But that's a problem. At the very least, it's deferring the problem. Those fence posts, okay, the UV trees, they're going to break down in sunlight, and they're going to crumble to dust at the top of it. You're going to have that dust, plastic dust, in our agricultural land. What are you doing with that sort of solution? Is spreading the town's waste over our country's agricultural land. It's not a good solution. These things need to be looked at in depth. And incineration, I think that's something which the council needs to look at. If we had a 5-year delay, we could assess things a little bit better.
Thank you, Alistair. Any questions?
Alistair, I just wanted to check, are you aware that the EU has stated recently that waste to energy is no place and that has excluded waste to energy from their sustainability agenda?
Well, the EU is a very political body. The waste to energy plants are increasing in some countries in Europe. They're increasing in North America. New designs are coming all the time, smaller modular ones. The environmental controls are much different than they were before. And we have these sort of pollution events taking place that would stop people overnight.
And just a follow-up question, if I may, and are you aware that they are pretty much the opposite of a circular economy? And in our recent waste strategy, we talked a lot about circular economy, and the experts in favour of it say, oh yes, it supports circular economy, but the other experts say, well, you're only using that waste once. You're burning it once as opposed to being able to recycle it something a number of times.
Point of order, is this a question or is it?
Oh, excuse me, on that side. On that side, we've had blatant statements. This is a question.
Sorry, it's not from that side, it's from me. I'm just asking a question for
I'm
clarification.
happy to let it run, but we'll.
Yeah, basically your comments on circular economy. How can you say this is circular economy?
Well, I think dumping stuff into repair is not a circular economy. Plastic bags, you make them out of petroleum products. They are very useful in our supermarkets for hygiene, for food, for medical devices, drugs. We need plastic as a wonderful health benefit to the nation.
Circular.
Yeah, now plastic bags, plastic bags, rubbish bags. We recycle those in rubbish bins once and not twice. Then with incineration, you burn it, you make energy. You don't have to burn.
So we'll leave it there, guys.
Okay. Thanks for taking out.
Thank you. Billy.
Question. So you know the pathway that we both know really well, where all the crannies and people and boat trailers are. So with the Waka Kotahi funding, it's usually a share situation with TCDC. So in that case, was it that Waka Kotahi completely paid for one piece and then TCDC was obligated to do the rest?
My understanding was two separate sections. That was in the concept. I'm not totally off with that. I know what has done their bit, the rest was supposed to be done TCDC co-funding or whatever. It hasn't happened. And it's used out there.
So a question from me, Alistair. Were you aware that the co-funding that was in place from Waka Kotahi for the TCDC section was removed?
Well, maybe we should try and get it reinstated.
From Waka Kotahi?
Yeah, well, that's so get it reinstated.
Yes, that's a good point, and we'll note that. But that funding is removed.
But it's a real issue.
It is. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Alistair.
Through the chair, John Freer, who is speaking on behalf of Louis Penny of Onimana. Going to pray again, so can we please take?
We can do that. Happy to do it.
Yeah, we're.
You want to do that now, John? Okay.
So through the chair, I am just, it's not personal, John, but I am aware that we're running behind schedule and there are people who've been waiting online.
Correct.
Who have jobs as well and other engagements. So it's just, I'm feeling it from people who have been stepped up, ready to speak.
We were at the 10 to 10:30 slot.
We are running as per the schedule, and the nature of these hearings.
No, we're not.
No, we're running according to the run sheet, but the nature of these hearings is that while we try and limit people to 5 minutes, I, as chair, don't want to start throwing down the hammer at 5 minutes, and I'm not too concerned about the half an hour. I am aware that we've got people waiting, but I'm happy to let things run.
We can skip one and 10. Well, it's 2 hours. I just powder my nose and give a coffee.
Let's carry on.
Because one submitted, Clayton Penny Clayton, sorry, has a JP appointment shortly, so.
I can go back to the office and do it on Teams. Doesn't worry me.
Right. So Penny, are you online? Can you hear us?
Yes, I am, and yes, I can.
Penny,
Hi, good morning.
How are you for time on your previous commitment?
My previous commitment was a minute ago. And I was called 10 to 10:30, so I kind of thought that half an hour would be appropriate, and it's my mistake, I'm afraid.
Okay, so where does it leave you? Do you want to reschedule your time, or we've got John Freer going to talk for Onimana for 5 minutes, and then we come straight to you? Will that work?
That would work for me, and I'll let my client know. Thank you.
All right, so councillors, that's what we'll do, and then we'll have a cup of tea after that.
Okay.
Okay. All right, John, go ahead. Onimana.
Sorry, right, can I just clarify which one are you on?
Onimana, we're on 288.
Okay, never mind. Yep.
Your worship, councillors, and I do extend an apology from the Onimana Residents and Community Association's Chairman, Rui Penny. Unfortunately, she's had a bereavement in the family, so I'm standing in as a committee member. Auga has provided a written submission on the draft annual plan. Appropriate information about our organisation and our mandate to make a submission is included. The council requested that interested parties lodge submissions so that councillors can make informed decisions in respect to the 2023-2024 annual plan. We had a group of 6 people who sat down to consider our submission, and it was a submission that was based both on the local community and also the wider district. The level of expertise in that group of people covered senior corporate management, fiscal management, and also public service management. You will note from the 5 key points in our submission that we experience significant difficulty in assessing the information to provide you with informed comment. With what our region has experienced over the past 5 or 6 months, the economic challenges that we know we're all experiencing, plus the need to ensure community with ongoing critical services, without mentioning the social impacts that we're experiencing, we believe that our community is in crisis. To get out of a crisis takes extraordinary steps. Whether you run a multi-million-dollar organisation such as the council or a small to medium-sized business, the same principles apply. And we all know that you cannot expect to do the same thing to achieve a different outcome. Councillors, the draft annual plan released under what is clearly a PR spin, rebuild and recover document. In regards to this, we found $2.2 million of budgeted expenditure was allocated prior to 2 major storms and reference to potentially a $40 million repair and rebuild, which, if I heard correct, has now gone up to $50 million. Council has provided no firm information on this. We accept that you are chasing government funding, but what is the scenario if this figure becomes 70 million? It's already gone up to 50, or the government does not come to the party. Your plan must cover these scenarios. You know, as an example, we look, there's $50 million that's gone out, I think, in business recovery funding. We've received $3.8 million so far. So, you know, where are we sitting in terms of relying on government funding? It's very precarious. We know that the council has reduced or deferred some projects, but we don't believe we've gone far enough, and we believe this needs to be reconsidered. A number of examples include your allocation for things like computer software and hardware, $960,000. Property renewals, $900,000, which is actually up $530,000. Motor vehicles, $528K. Why can't we delay the $1.7 million that we plan on spending on chip sealing? Currently, we believe there are greater priorities around the place than chip sealing. I've personally spoken to 2 councillors recently, both indicating that council has a commitment to the EAU, business as usual. We don't accept that. Council has a commitment to what are considered our region's priorities. Council also has a commitment to be prudent in its financial management and where the money is spent. Forget the flashy stuff, forget the political stuff. As I said earlier, we're in a crisis. We're looking at putting up rates to the level we are, we're in a crisis. Council is indicating a significant rating increase. Yes, we accept that some of that is a legacy of past councils. While we don't like it, our community accepts that a rate increase, and if they have to go up, that such an increase should be clearly justified. Then we will accept the increase. Auga has never wavered on this approach. We have always said, you justify it and we'll support it. And if you look back through the last couple of submissions that we've made, you'll see that we've been quite consistent around that. The current draft plan does not enable us to accept the proposed increases. At this time, a PR spin document with high-level numbers and assumptions just doesn't cut it. And it's one of the things that we looked at there, under section 95 of the Local Government Act. You've got to make sure that you are providing us with the appropriate information that we can make informed decisions. Only is very fortunate. We have a highly motivated group of people who take real interest in their local community and surrounding environment. In our submission, we do highlight aspects which do matter. Our water quality, which is being upgraded at present. Stormwater, water retention, pond clearing, which has been rather spasmodic, and it was only because of some local residents and visitors that we didn't have a major flood during the cyclones there, because they went down and cleaned it out. And also there is the importance of maintenance in the parks and recreation. Just finally, what we are also demanding, that if you hope to achieve our support for the 2023-24 annual plan and a significant rating increase, then the 4 points on the bottom of our submission, the summary, must be applied. So thank you very much. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. Any questions? That's good. Martin?
Yeah, John, you mentioned flashy stuff. I can't see any reference to that particular term in that submission, but what would you consider in our annual plan that's flashy stuff? I know you mentioned stealing, but
yeah, look, Mark, you've actually done a pretty good job. There is not a lot of flashy stuff now, but it's the political stuff also. I mentioned both flashy and political. So, you know, and I suppose there's been a lot of discussion around shoreline management and that sort of stuff, but we've just got to make sure, as I said there earlier, that we've got to concentrate on the stuff that really matters.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
All right.
Okay, thank you, John. We'll go to Penny and then we will break for morning tea. Before we go to Penny, what I would like to ask for those folks who are online, if there is anyone who has an urgent conflict or a pressing engagement that is going to cause a problem with their submission, please let us know. Please send a message through to Ari. We don't have any control over the number of questions that come. So there's always going to be some flexibility with time, but so please let us know if there's anything that you need us to be aware of. Penny, thank you for your patience.
Atamaria, good morning. We see it's proposed that Mercury Bay ratepayers will face an overall increase of around 14%. The largest increases we see are due to 76% increase in rubbish and recycling and a 24% increase in the cost of wastewater management. Currently, TCDC provides wastewater services to only a small number of Hahei residences. We all require rubbish collection, but we're disappointed to see such a huge increase in the cost of this service. We would have expected a greater increase in the cost of roading repairs, but you know, who's to know? Anyway, it's disappointing to see the food scraps collection presented to us as a fait accompli. It's unfair to charge through rates for non-resident ratepayers, or if people opt out of that service. Many people have existing food waste, composting or pigs, that sort of thing. We've had positive feedback on the plan, but it's far outweighed by the what the heck fix the roads. And we believe that this service should be voluntary. Maybe council should have waited to see how it goes in larger metropolitan areas such as Auckland and Tauranga before locking a largely non-resident ratepayer base into an untested scheme. We're also very disappointed that TCDC has chosen to defer the upgrade of the Hahei drinking water system. Around 50% of our ratepayers are provided with non-potable water. As a major tourist destination, we're really concerned that we could have a serious outbreak of waterborne disease, and we are going to be talking to Taumati Arawai about this. We're also very disappointed that TCDC is not working with us on the proposed Hahei sewerage expansion. Having actually completed the sewerage feasibility study, which confirmed available capacity, the expectation of the community and the approximately 70 affected households was that the funding for this was allocated in the 23-24 annual plan. The Wigmore stream pollution concerns have been raised many times by this Ratepayers Association. over the past 10 years. So we're requesting that both of these budget allocations be reinstated. Just as an aside, we believe that TCDC should work with NZTA and lobby for additional government funding to upgrade our roading network, particularly your council administered roads. Specifically, Hahei residents would like to see the following: road flooding mitigation, particularly at Dalmeny Corner. We get cut off so regularly and the weather events are occurring more frequently. And so the integrity of the Dalmeny Bridge really needs to be assessed. An upgrade, obviously council's working on restoring the Tapukora Glen Road, but it would be nice to see an upgrade of those two routes off the peninsula for people on the east coast. And it would be lovely to see flooding mitigation strategies for the Hikawai Pawanui area and the Wade Road outside Whitianga. You see, we do look outside our own area. Our long-term economic future depends on good roading, and the businesses here, particularly after 2.5, 3 years of COVID, being hit with the issues that we've got now with access for tourism and for our residents and ratepayers, people are starting to really despair, and we need to have some confidence that council working with NZTA is going to do something about that. That's us. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you, Penny. Questions for Penny?
Very good submission.
No, articulate as always.
And I'd like to say that I've re-angled my camera, Deli, so you won't see any unfortunate half-naked husbands like last submission.
We thank you for sharing that.
Which did
Have a
happen
nice
the
day,
last
guys.
time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, there is still, sorry to be that person, but Kerry Nielsen was still in that block before morning tea time. Supposed to be at 9:30. Yeah.
Kerry, are you online?
If I was Kerry, I would have tossed my toys and gone by now.
It takes a while for
Yeah.
people to just switch their microphone mute to unmute. Kerry, can you hear us? Kerry Nielsen?
I can hear you. Hello?
We can hear you.
Ah,
Kerry,
excellent.
We've got you up next. We are well overdue to give our members a break, and some of the older members having to use the bathroom.
I'll try to be brief.
Are you happy to hang in for 10 minutes while we have a short break at this end?
Sure. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for your patience.
Okay.
I would have had Kerry do it, yeah.
Tara said that she could be brief.
Well,
All right.
okay. All right. Oh, no, we're here. Yep.
I guess
All
just
right.
for future record, we're going to try and not make these so tight because we don't know how many.
Well, you haven't built in a question time, so the whole process is flawed because you've
But in the
allocated 5 minutes.
We'll discuss it at lunch.
Point taken, thank you. And
Point taken.
we've created a problem for ourselves, but it is what it is. So what we're doing now is we're asking for the patience of the folks on the other end just to give our team a break. Are you happy to wait, Kerry? And we've also got.
Yes, I can wait.
We've got Kim.
Joan. What would you prefer to do? Let's start. I'm a single issue. I'm just concerned about what's going to be the funding available for, and I better check here. This is about stormwater in Whangamata.
We'll come back. We'll come back to that if that's all right, Kerry. I need to give these guys a break because
okay.
Let's get a burst otherwise.
No worries. Okay,
so
cool.
Anyone else who's online because they're waiting, we'll come back in 10 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Catch you later.
Bye.